This is Andrew Vontz, and you're listening to a very, very special episode of Choose the Hard Way. This is the podcast about how hard things build stronger humans who have more fun. I have Spencer Martin of WEDU and Beyond the Peloton newsletter and podcast that we co-host together here today. That is where Spencer and I talk about bike racing and its intersection with some of the most fascinating topics in health, wellness, performance, and parenting, which we might get into today. But really, Spencer, we're here to talk about the 2026 Tour of Flanders. We said Milan-San Remo was potentially the best bike race ever, the 2026 edition. I would say it certainly was much more fun to watch than the 2026 Tour of Flanders, but we'll get there in a minute. Before we do, with over $1 trillion in transactions to date, blockchain.com is your trusted partner on your crypto journey. Special thanks to Blockchain for being the title sponsor for 2025, 2026, and beyond of Choose the Hard Way. And you might note I'm wearing my Lauf hat. I wear a Lauf hat because I ride a Lauf Segla. And why do I do that? Because it is the best gravel bike, bar none. If you gravel, give it a shot. And before we dive in here, one more thing. You might know that I launched One Real Voice. It's the consultancy built to help senior leaders who are at the top of their industries thrive in the dynamic, high-stakes, unscripted communication environments that are so critical to their roles today. Things like being a world-class podcast guest, host, shining in fireside chats, and in internal meetings as well, like town halls. If you feel like you're ready to be the best, then you can reach out to me at hello@onerealvoice.com or DM me at hardwaypod. Or you can just reach out on LinkedIn, but who wants to spend time there? Spencer, I'm pretty excited to talk about this Tour of Flanders. I know that everybody's probably read your takeaways in the Beyond the Peloton newsletter this week, but we have not gotten a chance to rap about this. So it's hot and fresh out the kitchen, as R. Kelly would say.
Yeah.
He's
like committed terrible crimes though since that song.
It's still a good song. It's like trying to explain to your kids why, Michael Jackson's music is amazing, but Michael Jackson, the person, is highly problematic. Even though, as someone pointed out to me recently, he really was the original biohacker and longevity health span person, sleeping in that hyperbaric chamber way back. All right, so let's get to this.
I just thought of you the other day. I freaking hate things like this. It's like biggest musical artists from each state, but it's like, it's got to be AI slop. Missouri. Do you know what Missouri was? Andrew's home state.
Oh boy,
I
would say, okay, if it were the late 80s, I would say Buster Brody, who was a harmonica prodigy.
I would say it's Nelly, hands down.
Okay. I have interviewed Nelly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Country Grammar. But it was Eminem. Because apparently he was born in Missouri.
Where in Missouri?
That's probably Kansas City, right? And then he got out as fast as possible. Let's check.
Yeah.
Is he from?
That's
but he's not from. He's from born in St. Joe, not from there, right? Like from Detroit.
Wow, he was born in St. Joe. That's incredible.
We shouldn't have let him go.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can't hold on. It's like the Artemis 2. Some things like achieve escape velocity and are slingshotted by that center of mass of the universe. In this instance, central. It's not central Missouri. It's really.
I guess
western Missouri, right?
West, yeah, so far west, you're confused how it's even in Missouri.
Northwest Missouri. Yeah, well, that's incredible, Spencer. And, I mean, great segue. We know that Pog is dyeing his hair in homage to Eminem, of course. So there's the link back to the Tour of Flanders. One thing that I noted following the conclusion of Flanders, and granted, the weather was, it reminded me of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It was like we saw 10.
It did look like cinematic rain coming.
Yeah, through. Like 100 years and 50 storms passed by, and the seasons changed throughout the race. It was sunny. They were on the yellow brick cobbles. The next thing you know, it's pouring rain. It's freezing cold. It's hot again. The Pog at the finish line this year, he sounded a bit ill to me.
I mean, did he? I was noticing this too. He looked wiped. Did he sound ill, or did they raced 6.5 hours? That's fast for Flanders, by the way. And I got up at 4 a.m, turned it on, and the race was already so hard it was breaking up, like with almost 200K to go. So they might have just all been wiped. Like I would imagine. Can you imagine that, racing all out for 6 hours or 6.5 hours? I think he was just like destroyed.
Pretty destroyed, and a lot of sidebar conversations about whether Mathieu van der Poel should have taken any poles. I watched his post-race interview. He had an interesting theory that he actually, I'm trying to think through the logic of this, but he said to keep his legs open. It actually worked better for him to take some poles. What do you think of that? You ever do that out at the Bud distributorship out on Lehman Road in Lenexa?
I would never do it. I would think less energy expended, the better. But you can kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't agree with it, but I can kind of see where he's coming from. And I'll start with a story, a parable. So I'm on Old Stage starting a ride the other day, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to start this ride. I'm going to do 370 watts for 5 minutes. That's how I'm going to start my ride. You know who I passed, by the way, and then who then sprinted past me? Colby Pierce. Yeah, he's pissed. He's at home pissed about it. But so I was like, I'm going to start at 370 watts, and then I'm going to just see how 300 feels. And it felt quite a bit easier, actually. But did the energy expenditure put me in a hole that I would have paid for later? I felt like it was far easier to ride at 300, having like worked the legs out versus trying to build into 300, if that makes sense. So maybe there's something there. I would probably say sitting on is better. But the more I think about this, Andrew, just mathematically, he's getting a lot of crap for working and then getting dropped. Are all of these guys doing the right thing, though? Is this analytic cycling, like with 100 and what's wild is 102K to go is when the selection happened. And then everyone is working. It's like one big happy family all the way to the Claremont, second time up. Pogačar thins it down more. Big happy family to keep Remco off the back. He drops him. I kind of wonder if that's the right move, because are you better off? You're in front of the peloton. You're out of the muck. You've made the selection. Just work and hope Pogačar has a problem. What if he doesn't eat enough? What if he flats? What if he crashes? That actually might be the better strategy. I kind of wonder if Van der Poel maximized his chances of winning by working instead of letting everybody come back and then it reshuffles.
Yeah, potentially. And there also was the sub question that Pog surfaced in his post-race interview of, did Van der Poel want Remco to come back into the mix or not? So that was kind of playing on Pog's brain as he was thinking through what the strategy was for the remainder of the race. So there was a bit of a question mark there, I guess, with Van der Poel working. It seemed as though he didn't want Remco to come back, and indeed he did not come back. And there is this question of the Remco of it all. Before we get there, though, there was the Ineos rider. Was it Connor Swift who had the wreck?
Dude, yeah, Connor Swift. He went down so hard.
So I think TNT Sports or someone posted the clip, and it was raising, hey, how did this happen? And it was very clear to me what happened, which was he was guttered, and his front wheel hit the seam in the gutter and got stuck or shuffled sideways unexpectedly, and then he was catapulted onto the ground. I'm surfacing that because of the size of the group, which was 17 riders. I think that could have, it could have happened to anyone. The best riders seem to avoid these mishaps, but there are always these moments, as we saw with Mathieu van der Poel, where he had the moment where he was out of position when the nuclear attack went. And then, I haven't looked at his power file, but that had to be,
He potentially never recovered from that.
Yeah, I don't think he did. Because to me, when I saw that, the thing that I thought was, this is probably equivalent to his winning attack when the Worlds were in Scotland.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, he had to ride it so much faster than Pogačar. And I'm pretty sure that was the fastest ascent they did that day instead of the last one. So, yeah, that's essentially a winning attack. He rode away from the group. He just happened to be too far back in the group. How did that happen? I was going through the video for my piece today, and he's just like, Wout's the only one that sees it coming. I'm like, how did they not know this was going to happen? It was very odd actually watching it.
It was odd. Mads Pedersen, impressive. You have to wonder what a healthy Mads who hadn't been doing a kip. And if you're not familiar with a kip scenario, you need to go listen to more Beyond the Peloton. We're, of course, talking about our good friend Kip of Kip's Corner fame, who went through the winter with an AC separation, spent a lot of time on the trainer with an elevated arm, which we know Mads did as well, broken wrist. I think do you have a collarbone or shoulder?
Yeah, it was one wrist. It was a wrist on one hand, collarbone on the other hand, or other arm. Not good.
Yeah. Not optimal preparation. And then I think, Spence, there's also this question of who was not in this race. And I'm thinking in particular of a rider we've discussed quite a bit on Beyond the Peloton, including in the Flanders preview. Should Quinn Simmons have been in this race?
Absolutely. Like he was at the GP, Miguel Indurain on Saturday, and he did well, but he's racing these races. I frankly don't think he's not a big guy. If you see him, he's very lean. He's a strong guy though. Like he should be at this. He's racing against Juan Izagirre, who's the world's skinniest man, on very steep climbing finishes, doing well. Like think about Lombardia, how well he did. Put that power to use on some terrain that would suit you, Quinn. What are we doing? I don't understand it. Geraint Thomas thinks he should have raced it. I agree with Geraint Thomas. I don't understand why he wasn't here. Should we also say Remco Evenepoel did pretty well?
He did all right.
Yeah. He didn't do – I couldn't find a single rider in the history of this race that just skipped every classic before, that hadn't done any warm-up classics and then hopped in and podiumed. That is wild.
And Spence, why do you think that is? Is it a huge factor that we had the selection at 102 kilometers, which meant he didn't have to have the race nous to navigate all of the intricacies of the Flanders course because he was surrounded by veterans who knew exactly what to do?
And once the group's that small, all the complexity is taken out of it. It's perfect for Remco. We should say he's an incredible athlete. I think being an incredible athlete, not just bike rider, but the guy was a professional level soccer player, very strong rider. Like he's not going to struggle as much as someone less athletic probably just to adapt to a new thing. He's a very good rider. He's a very good one-day rider. Well, he's won 2 monuments before, 2 Lièges, mini podiums at other monuments. So he's a good one-day racer. And I think I said this to you maybe, like it's not that complicated. I feel like it gets overcomplicated. Man pedal bike fast is kind of the sport. And if man can pedal bike fast in a Grand Tour, I think they can do it in a one-day race. And he proved that the sport is maybe simpler than a lot of people think. But yeah, the selection coming so early, he had the strongest team in the race probably. Red Bull's incredible. And it coming so early that it just, all he had to do was follow wheels. Should he have been pulling all out going into the Paterberg? Probably not. I mean, I can't believe. So he gets dropped on the second to last Paterberg. He was dangling at 5. He could have touched them at a certain point, and then Pogacar looked back and said, I don't want him to come on, and just kind of increased the pace a little bit. But he might have had the hot take is that was the most impressive ride of the day. Dangling for 50K, not really losing that much time. What would have happened? What would have happened if he didn't pull? Well, he would have gotten dropped the next time up the Paterberg. So I guess no harm, no foul, Remco. Third place was probably as good as he was going to do, and he got third place. So congrats.
And Spencer, you just highlighted something I had in my notes, which was Red Bull. They put 3 riders in the 17-up break, and they look like one of the strongest teams in the race. And what this made me think about is something that we've discussed quite a bit on Beyond the Peloton. Highly unlikely to happen given Remco's salary. But let's say Remco goes all in on winning one-day races and maybe week-long or less stage races versus targeting Grand Tours. What happens?
Great question. Well, my question back to you is, does he have to do that? Because Tadej Pogacar does both. Maybe that's not replicable. So in theory, you could balance, but I kind of think he should target one-day races. After seeing this, it's like the Grand Tour. I mean, you obviously do the Grand Tours. Wout van Aert does Grand Tours. He's just not trying to win them. The problem is financial. They're paying him. He is one of the highest paid riders in the sport, and they're paying him to win the Tour de France. Like, that's what Red Bull signed him to do. So would Red Bull be – I think the sporting decision would be, yeah, he should just be a classics rider. But will they want a rider making 7 to 8 million euros a year doing the Mathieu van der Poel program? And Mathieu van der Poel only gets away with that because he's freakishly good at winning one-day races.
Yeah, and the answer is no, and that's why for me this goes back to Remco's contract gets bought out and he goes to the Rockets. I think that's his next move.
Great. I mean, he's doing pretty well at Red Bull, I guess, like as a one-day rider. But yeah, I would love to see him in Rocket Pink. Were they at this race? They were not, right?
No, I believe they were.
Oh, they were.
I saw some riders in Group 2. And the reason I think that's possible is because I think that the Rockets, I think that they're likely to be capitalized in such a manner that they could do something like buy out Remco's contract, leverage the value of that through their storytelling. And I think that Red Bull also is just going to run into this situation where they have we have 2 leaders on the road at the Tour de France, and Remco is never going to be a support rider. And then I don't know what happens once it becomes clear he's not winning the Tour, and what is he doing at the race at that point?
Yeah, and here, get this. I didn't notice this yesterday. I noticed it this morning. But so big, what do you call him? Big Rich Paul Success.
Yes.
Rich Paul Seychelles took a flamethrower to the sport at the Tour of Basque Country today. Opening stage, really hard time trial, uphill time trial. He comes out and he says, "I'm the captain now." Like, sit down, Primoz. This is good riders here. It's Isaac Del Toro, Primoz Roglic, Juan Ayuso, Kevin Vauquelin, and he crushed them. He is the next guy in stage racing. Stage racing is a young man's game for reasons I don't understand. Now, do you know who the youngest rider in the top 10 of the Tour of Flanders was?
I don't know.
Remco Evenepoel.
Wow.
Tadej Pogacar's second youngest rider in the top 10. Only 3 riders under the age of 30. For some reason, there's no youth pressure in these one-day races. So
where did Magnus Sheffield land?
He was, oh my Lord, he DNF'd. Wasn't he in that move?
I felt like he was. Yeah, I felt like he was either in the select group or Group 2.
I'm almost positive he was in the select group. Wow. I mean, shows you how hard that race is. We also had Luke. We should say shout out Luke Lamperti. He was in the breakaway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, buried lead to me. Actually, this was one of the most significant rides at Flanders, and I'm not even kidding. Luke Lamperti going from doing Tulsa Tough, I think in 2024, 2025 for Quick Step, to the guy is in Group 1 at the Tour of Flanders with the G4 group. Not bad. Hats off, Luke. Looks like all the intervals on the beef farm are paying off. So good job.
Well, so much is made about Soudal Quick-Step. Like they're the wolf pack. They're magic. They can work magic with riders, whatever that means. But clearly, they were not maximizing him, right, at all.
Right.
Because he's now at EF. He looks like a different rider. It's like, well, this guy was incredibly talented. What were they doing with him? But Remco, youngest top guy in the top 10. So that shows you he's got a lot of, obviously he's not going to be beating Pogacar probably, but everyone's got a Pogacar problem. Van der Poel, Wout, Remco, Mads Pedersen. But he's got time on his side because there's not the pressure from below like there is in stage racing. So if he's the top, what is he now? The best young cobbled racer in the sport. So he's got years to try to win one of these.
Yeah, Spence, we didn't get to discuss this previously. I saw a piece last week. It was an interview with Jakob Vogel saying, former pro rider, now a DS, I believe. I don't know which team he's the DS for. And he talked about how at Quick Step in the Belgian Classics, part of their strategy was to attack first just to get the motobike draft. That was an actual part of their strategy. And then he talked about how critical that is and that smart riders will make that initial move because we see people going super long as we did in this race at 102K. But in his view, once you make that move, because they want good pictures for TV, where your $700 a year suite of streaming services you're paying for to watch professional cycling, they get close to the riders, and people in back are never going to catch up because the motorbikes just don't get as close to them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that is a real strategy, and people should do that. I mean, as Quinn Simmons was complaining about it at the Tour last year with Tim Wellens attacks, and he gets the moto. Yeah. It's like, yeah, Quinn, you should attack first because the moto is right there for anyone to take. I mean, if you noticed, like a lot of moto help at San Remo, right? What was that, a couple weeks ago? Like Pogacar and Pidcock were basically getting motor paced, and then once Van der Poel's dropped, he's not getting motor paced. Same thing yesterday. It's Van der Poel and Pogacar are getting that moto, but Remco was too close to them to have a moto, but then he's dangling at 10 seconds without a draft. And that's like, I mean, he must have actually done the most impressive effort of the day, because Pogacar and Van der Poel are basically swapping turns on a motor pacing session behind a moto. It's a huge help. I know they probably should do something about it. Sometimes it seems, I mean, anytime you're watching a race and you're looking, you never think about it, but you're looking at the leader and you're really close in front of them. That's they're drafting right there. Why do we need them to be so close? They seem very close to the riders. I have to imagine they could do something about this.
Another thing that jumped out at me in the broadcast, I'm not going to remember which climb this was. Which was the one that had like the full grandstands built up at the top?
That's the Quermont.
Okay, so
and I want to go
Quermont,
to those grandstands.
Two things jumped out at me. Number one, people igniting flares. I just think they should be arrested immediately. There should be police there, and you should be arrested if you ignite a flare and blast it into someone's face while they're doing 700 watts up a climb. And you should go to jail for a while, in my view. Number two, I don't know if you noticed this, but after Pog went past, someone hucked a full beer into the road, which, of course, has been a problem in cyclocross. But it just made me think again about crowd interference in the sport.
Well, it is always crowd interference with Van der Poel. It's always
Van der Poel.
Like, what is going on?
I don't know.
Do you remember? So if you look closely at these grandstands, there's a buffer now. Like you can't stand up against right up against the cobbles, because that's where there was a sweater hanging over the side. And Sagan, I think he was going to mow down Gilbert and win that race, and he hit the sweater and crashed.
Yeah, and that was the inspiration for the Weezer song, the Sweater song. So, Spencer, just to go in a slightly different direction here, the second biggest race of the day in my home was I finally set up the Wahoo Kickr Core that our good friends at Wahoo sent over. I have another kicker I'm going to be setting up shortly. I had this theory that you and I have been talking about, that I could set up the Kickr Core with the Zwift Click Cog and put my kids' bikes, which are 20-inch and 24-inch specialized Riprock mountain bikes, on these trainers, because it's just a one cog setup with remote controls, basically, that control resistance on the trainer, and I could get them in Zwift. Within 10 minutes, my kids started fighting over who was going to get a turn. And then my 9-year-old ended up putting in 2 full hours. And at one point, because you can turn much more easily with the controllers, which I find to be a bit difficult to do because I don't have my phone mounted on my stem or anything. So my son sees this thing. He says, "Dad, what's a KOM?" I said, "Oh, that's a King of the Mountain." He said, "Oh, great, I'm going to do it." Hits the turn. I think he was on the volcano loop, and he starts his 20-minute climb. He does the entire 20-minute climb. I said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" He said, "Well, yeah, I want to get to the top." And then he kept marking himself against other riders. I explained how drafting worked. He got really excited about drafting. And I think that this is a really exciting thing for parents out there. There might not be a massive total addressable market, but if my kid's going to use the screen, hey, this seems like a pretty positive way for them to do it. The thing that's tricky with this setup is Zwift, I think, because there are probably trust and safety reasons for having young people on the platform, number one. And number two, they want to squeeze every dollar of revenue out of potential users. So there's no family membership, so I had to put the kids on my membership. They used to have free memberships for kids under 16, according to my research. And you also can't lower a rider's weight below 88 pounds. So I was like, so my youngest, who probably weighs 50 pounds, was auto set at 88. And then this is all going to distort my data at the point at which I'm back in Zwift. I'd love to talk to Eric Men. If you're listening to this, Eric Men, I know you have a lot of other things to build, and you're probably thinking about how you take your company public. But why don't we do something good for kids with technology and screens and actually get them active? Number one. Number two, Spence, it sounds like we might have a cross-country rivalry starting soon amongst our kids. Is that correct?
This could be, because the good people at Wahoo, shout out James, is sending along a Zwift Kickr Core and a Wahoo Kickr Core and a Zwift Cog and Click for my son to use. We're going to have problems with because right now he loves Zwift. Like, kids love Zwift, apparently. I think actually next year, Eric Min's always at Ruler Live. We should do a panel with him about youth, like getting the youth on Zwift.
We could do like an activist investor thing where we stand up and just start drilling him with questions. No, Eric.
Why is your platform not optimized for children?
Yeah, Eric Min, you're invited to come on here. You have an interesting story. Your product is cool. We love using it. Our kids love it. We'd love to talk to you about it. We have some great ideas. But I know how that goes from my time at Strava, where you're getting 100 product feature suggestions every time you talk to someone. Yeah. And you just have to stay focused and execute your roadmap in the highest ROI areas. But I'm telling you, let's do something good with tech. And it's incredible that you can put a kid's bike on the Kickr Core with the Click Cog, and they're just ripping. Honest to God, it took me 5 minutes to get a bike set up.
So right now, my son rides like an old, like the Cyclops fluid trainer, but his wheel's not big enough to touch it. Right. So he's just spinning, which I think is good. It's like good for your Souplesse.
Yeah, Souplesse. Absolutely.
But I have to watch I'm riding. He thinks he's me. And I have to watch his legs and try to match his cadence so that he doesn't get suspicious about what's happening. But then he'll be like, I want to do the Zwift KOM and I want to get the fastest time. And then I have to ride that hard to get it. But so I'm very excited for the Kickr Core. We had a sponsorship deal with Zwift last year with WEDU during the tour, and they had the Cog and Click, and I didn't quite get it. I was like, I don't really understand the utility of this. But with these kids' bikes, now I get it's like makes total sense to me. You can have one trainer, put any bike on it. We don't have a deal with them, by the way. We're just discovering this product.
We would like to, though.
Yeah.
We're open to it. We're open
to
a deal.
The fact that, the big thing is, like, I have SRAM and Shimano bikes.
Yes.
And I didn't quite understand, like, I can't put both on a normal trainer. I would need the Cog and Click. And then the kids' bike. Yeah, you can just throw these kids' bikes on these smart trainers. It's an incredible product. One problem with kids on Zwift is they will ride. This happens with adults too. They'll ride and ride and ride and not realize how tired they're getting, and then they get off and they'll just fall down, like they can't walk. So you got to manage the effort.
Yeah. The other thing I'm trying to figure out, because I already see the direction this is going with my two kids, and I'm gonna have to have two setups, and I'm gonna have to find some way for them to be in the game at the same time and racing each other.
Yeah.
So I've thought through this. I think the simplest way is with the Kickr Core with Click and Cog with an iPad is the game interface. iPads, though, as parents, we know it's incredibly dangerous to put an iPad in front of a kid, even if they start off on Zwift. You don't know where the train's going to go once it leaves the station. But I like the alternate. As I was looking at my setup, you can go to my Instagram at HardwayPod if you want a de-identified look at the setup and my children using it without showing their faces. You can get a walkthrough of it. I'm running it through my typical Zwift setup, which is I've got a MacBook running into a TV with an HDMI cord through a dongle, DSL cord going straight into the computer, because we don't want any latency for these kids, right?
Yeah.
But, that's pretty complicated. So the basics are, I want my kids to understand your hand never goes anywhere near the chain or anything moving on the trainer. We're always going to supervise them, number one. And then number two, I just want something really simple where we push a button and they're riding, which I think is probably an iPad on a stand.
Yeah, iPad on a stand. I for a long time, I would get whenever I got a new phone, I would never turn my phone in. I got this idea that was a scam, that I should keep these phones. But then what I'm left with is I have like a bunch of miniature iPads laying around the house. So that's how I power the Zwifts. Is I just have so if someone wants to be on, you can have two. The annoying thing is the two accounts. It would be nice if you could do a family account.
Yeah, I just want a family account with the drop down, and I want, again, I know this from trust and safety, privacy things. At Strava, it can get complicated. You don't want adults interacting with kids. Newsflash, I see this all the time on Zwift where I don't know why people do this. They put their kid on there and it's like, Bobby, 13. And then like, how is this going on? That shouldn't be there. And they're in the messages.
Yeah.
That's what you don't want to have happen. But I think that you can do some kind of fenced version of this where they don't have access to messaging. You tell them the kid's age, you have parental supervision, you consent to it. And then you could actually enter their weight, because I have to say, for my 7-year-old who's around 50 pounds, it was pretty disappointing for her to see how slow she was going.
What are the watts she's putting out?
She's putting out like 40 watts.
Yeah. So, like, let's say a kid is going really hard and they're doing 100 watts.
Right.
And they weigh 50 pounds.
Right.
Like, they could be putting out like 4 watts per kilo.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And like
yeah, like after my son did the KOM, he turned around and rode down it. And the cool thing about those toggles with the Click Cog, I think that's what it's called. You just push the button and it's like it changes the virtual gearing resistance in the trainer unit. So I was explaining to him, because he was spinning like 100 RPMs, said, hey, push the plus sign. Suddenly he's going like 40 miles an hour downhill. He's like, this is so cool.
We've started to get, my son is suspicious because he's like, why does gear 7 feel like gear 1 outside? Like, what's going on? I'm like, well, you don't have any resistance on there is the first problem. But yeah, we're hoping we can get this solved. It is like, I guess we got to manage it. We're going to be like Javier Salah at UAE. We have to upload to a Training Peaks. We got to make sure they don't overtrain.
Right.
Make sure they're on enough carbs during the effort. It's going to be a lot of work for us.
Yeah, that was pretty wild, because again, the kids put in 2 full hours yesterday, no carb slurry, nothing. I did no water. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure? I did pull out some cycling caps. Like, they liked having the cycling cap, keep the hair out of the face. I had the fans on, but it was a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, that's what gets people active. And it's going to snow here again this week. We did get out briefly on the mountain bikes this weekend, which was fun. And this means that when it stops snowing, they'll be able to rip and have a lot of fun when they get on the trails, which I'm pretty excited about. And
it just is part of our larger effort to get our kids so into cycling, we never have to not be doing cycling.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate goal. Then you're going on like the my long play is, a couple of years from now, it's like, oh, we've got to go to the Dolomites on vacation, and like now I'm stealing the vacation basically, because it's like, the kids want to go. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we got to do big rides, right? Because we're here with the kids. They want to do the Paso Sella. Sorry,
yeah, of course.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Well, Spence, thanks for joining me to chop it up and do something a bit different here on Choose the Hard Way today. You can find me at Hardway Pod. You can find Spencer on Substack. He is Beyond the Peloton newsletter, a top-rated sports newsletter, the best cycling newsletter on Substack. And you can listen to us talk more about professional cycling and some ancillary topics, as you heard today, over on Beyond the Peloton podcast, which we do weekly. And wherever you're listening or watching to Choose the Hard Way, please take a moment to subscribe. It's going to help more people find this show. And scroll down, hit 5 stars. You made it this far. Hopefully you like the show. And we will see you again soon.